Mrs. Blevins, you did a great job right there.
Was that to my mom or Jody?
Yeah. Well, to your mom. Jody didn't raise you.
That's a good point.
Although, Jody, you're doing great.
Jody's doing great,
cleaning up
too.
Whatever Mrs. Blevins didn't cover. You did great.
Welcome back to another episode of Is This for Kids? I am Jonathan Bearded Blevins.
And I am Katie, MrsRuvi. Wait, Katie, Mrs. Ruvi. There you go.
Did you just forget your name?
No, I put it in a weird way because my handle online is Mrs. Ruvi, and then my last name is like ridiculous long. So I've decided that it's easier to just say Katie, Mrs. Ruvi.
I think that your email also makes it confusing. I will not dox that right now, but
my email is.
Don't share it.
Okay.
But it's just.
We're going to talk about this later.
Just be consistent, okay?
I am consistent.
She's
what do you
trying
think
to defend herself without giving her email out.
My email address is literally the same.
Did you know that people don't say that?
What is wrong with you?
Did you know people can send us stuff?
Yeah, if they're patrons.
If they're patrons, they can send us stuff, and maybe they'll see it appear on our awesome wall of greatness here.
Yeah, can I tell you a backstory about this little guy right here?
Please.
This little guy right here is my high egg from my Twitch stream. This is one of my emotes that you can use. But
Twitch.tv/MrsRuvi.
Mrs. Ruvi. This was made by a fellow YouTuber, KevBot.
Yes.
He's in both of our communities, and he made this little guy with a lathe and put him together, and he's so cute. And
That's
now he lives
excellent woodwork, I would say.
Yeah, he lives in the background as a little Easter egg to the community. So I'm very excited to start having, Is This for Kids Easter eggs in the background.
That is excellent. Man, That story, you know what that story just did?
What?
Gave me goosebumps. Name a better person at transitions.
That was so good. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Blevins, you did a great job right there.
Was that to my mom or Jody?
Yeah. Well, to your mom. Jody didn't raise you.
That's a good point.
Although, Jody, you're doing great.
Jody's doing great,
cleaning up
too.
Whatever Mrs. Blevins didn't cover. You did great.
I'm excited for this episode. Goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
We're going to talk about Goosebumps.
Every 90s kid knows Goosebumps.
Yeah, the books were awesome. I'm actually shocked that my mom let me read them. Just looking back at like the rest of the way I was raised.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I read them.
Tracks.
It was definitely like my intro into Scare, that and Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Okay.
I watched the old shows, which I believe were in the 90s.
95, yeah.
95. So I was like 11, 12. So I probably was like 13 when I actually watched them.
Yeah.
Old school. But then there's
you weren't
now
11 or 12 in 1995.
A brand new show on Disney Plus. So we just did Five Nights at Freddy's, which came out earlier.
Yeah.
And now we're doing Goosebumps. And when I found out that you could just watch it on Disney, I was like, what? What is Disney doing? Why?
Well, I think the original Goosebumps was just like a network TV show, wasn't it? So you could do the same thing. It was like on CBS or something. I don't know. Somebody's going to correct me.
It's weird. My oldest, the 8-year-old Caleb,
Yeah.
Has been having a hard time sleeping at night.
Okay.
And he just is always in his head.
Sure.
So he thinks about like everything and has a hard time falling asleep. So recently he's been coming out of his room and saying that he's scared. And we're like, oh, what are you scared of? And so, yeah, he's like me, like an absolute wuss about this stuff. And so recently he goes, well, when I go on Disney Plus to find Bluey, sometimes I see previews for shows and it's really scary. And he doesn't even mean previews. He means like just the pictures.
The picture, the thumbnail.
And I'm like, on Disney, what's on there?
It is a very creepy looking doll.
Apparently Goosebumps.
Yeah. So Goosebumps, for those of you who are not familiar, have no idea what we're talking about. Goosebumps is sort of a callback to a series of books that were made in the early 90s by a guy called R.L. Stine. He was like the king of horror. Like once you moved out of Goosebumps, there was a teen version called Fear Street. There was a whole bunch of other like teeny bopper type novels. And the 90s TV show was basically like standalone. Each episode was one book from there. So there was, Night of the Living Mummy, and you would see a mummy come to life, and none of the characters overlapped from one episode to the next, right? Yep. This is a little different. This is a long form running story coming out episodically. So one episode a week. At the time of this recording, we're only up to like 10 episodes. So I can't speak to anything beyond that. But this is sort of one overarching story about a group of kids who are sort of reliving not really reliving. Okay, they're paying the price for their parents' misgivings in the 90s.
30 years ago, yeah.
30 years ago, which was not the 70s. It was, in fact, the 90s.
Yep.
So in the 90s, their parents had maybe bullied, maybe depending on whose point of view you're taking, this kid, Harold Biddle. And you see from the very first scene of this that Harold Biddle was killed in a fire, and that there's this sort of a mystery of how were the parents involved? What did they know? How was it going? And I don't want to spoil it for you, so fast forward like 10 seconds or so if you don't want to be spoiled. But ultimately, it came down to the fact that Harold had become possessed by, or at least enamored with, a dummy, a ventriloquist dummy that is clearly possessed as some sort of satanic demonic creature. and it has changed his personality. And so they were trying to save him from that when an accident befell him, right? All a result of this horrible mummy.
Yeah.
Not mummy. Dummy. Sorry. Same thing.
Mummy would be less scary.
Yeah. Dolls are freaky, man.
Dolls and little kids. Freaky. Nothing scarier than like a little girl with like hair over the front of her face in like the rain swinging on a swing by herself. Nothing in the world. I would literally rather see a demon than to like be outside at 6 p.m. as the sun is setting and just see the little girl just swinging there with her eyes covered by her hair. Oh my gosh.
Right. Because pneumonia is terrifying. You're going to have the pink stuff in your fridge forever.
See?
Forever. Right. All right. So we've got these teenage kids, this group of teenage kids in this show, and kind of a theme in teen dramas these days is this like probably not likely mix of friends where you've got like the incredibly popular jock kid is best friends with the LGBTQ kid and neighbors and good friends with the nerdy quiet girl. Like they're all best buds in a way that probably doesn't happen in reality, right?
Yeah.
But the show does a good job of trying to have a good amount of representation of different cultures, different viewpoints, etc. What were your thoughts?
Well, I had a hard time on like the first 4 or 5 episodes understanding who the show is for.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't know, because I'm thinking, again, similar to if you listen to our Five Nights at Freddy's episode, a lot of people my age are playing Five Nights at Freddy's. A lot of people my age would maybe be interested in a remake of Goosebumps. Right? That was what we grew up on. So like I'm sitting down to watch it thinking this is going to be for me. And it definitely was not for me. I mean, even episode 1, I was just like halfway through, I was like, oh, this is dumb. It doesn't do a good job, in my opinion. I did youth ministry for 15 years, just even recently. So like I understand teen culture, I've worked with a ton of high school kids. This is not how high school kids are acting. It's not how high school kids acted when I was in high school. So I'm like, who is this actually for? And then you're like, John, I don't think it is for even high school kids.
No. Buckle up, guys.
Like, who are they making the show for?
I am not normally a conspiratorial person. You go back and watch every episode we have. I am clearly the flaming liberal on this show, right? Like, of the two of us, it's me. Okay. So please understand that that's where I come from when I tell you that I believe that this show is not appropriate for anyone, basically, because it seems to be a show that's made to look like it's for teenagers. Okay. So when you're looking at it, the characters are teenagers, they're cool, they're attractive. You've got the weird Gen Z lingo. They even make a joke about millennials hearing a phrase on TikTok and misusing it. Blah, blah. Like it's clearly there for that. But I'm watching it with my 15-year-old daughter and she's livid the entire time. Kids don't talk like this. Why are you kissing a boy who just ate a worm? Have you no standards at all? There's no chance that a high school sophomore is going to kiss a boy that just ate a worm. Like, that's the freaky weird kid. There's no chance she's going near that kid ever again. So my teenage daughter is like, this show is not for teenagers. This is ridiculous. But you know who was completely starstruck by this show? My 10-year-old.
Really?
My 10-year-old daughter is watching, shut up, Maggie, it's fun, I like it. And she's watching it in the same way that I was talking about Boy Meets World being an opportunity to see your older brother doing things and having things modeled for you.
Yeah.
This show feels like it was made for 8 to 10-year-olds to think this is how teenagers behave and to start emulating it. And that is where I become incredibly concerned about some of the things that are happening here.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I just go off?
I want you to do this. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys. So, for example, there's an episode, Go Eat Worms, which obviously had a huge impact on my kids. They all thought it was really gross that this kid was eating worms or whatever. Very obviously, the first 3 episodes are all metaphors for things that kids go through in life. I think that parents will watch those first 3 episodes and read it as like, oh, these are things that kids go through and they're helping them process. Sort of like we talked about in Five Nights at Freddy's, that horror was a genre meant to look at the underbelly of your emotions and feelings and help you to process them. So like in your very first episode, you've got, what's that kid's name? Isaiah, who's dealing with like the pressures of academics. He's dealing with being the popular kid and living up to the expectations that are there. You got in the second episode, Isabel is a internet troll and she's trolling her friends. And you have the whole like how that can be dangerous and how that can damage you. In the third episode, you've got James, who he is the LGBTQ character who is out there, he's gender non-conforming, but he has a tendency to be a different person for each person that he's around. Yeah. And so all these clones of him are broken off. And then by the fourth episode, you're looking at Lucas, whose father has died by suicide. And he is now has throughout the entire series been engaging in these very reckless behaviors, jumping off of roofs, grabbing onto a flying drone, things that are going to get him killed. And he eats this worm that makes him so he's unable to feel pain. And it's like a very, very thinly veiled metaphor for sadness, for depression, and for substance abuse, right? Yeah. Eventually, he vomits everything up and he becomes a completely different character where he's capable of talking to his siblings and things like that, or his classmates and things like that. So you've got these things that seem like they're good ways for kids to process things. But during that Go Eat Worms episode, there are so many things that should not be being said in a show that is for teenagers or even little kids. It's apparent that two of the teenagers' parents are having an affair with one another. And this is not a parent that has been divorced. This is a dead person. One has a dead spouse and the other one is just estranged. Like they're not broken up. They make it clear that the mom thought they were getting back together. Like this is just an affair. This is flat out an affair. And they use language like your dad's banging my mom. And that's jarring. You would never hear banging my mom in a Goosebumps episode. Right. But by that point, I think parents will have watched the first 3 episodes and check out and not be thinking that kind of language is happening. They'll be thinking like, oh, everything is okay. And it kind of continues from there. It keeps getting worse from there. And it worries me that these things are hidden in later episodes. What do you think of that? So
your conspiracy part is that it might deliberately look better in the first few episodes so that parents would be like, okay, this is fine, and then has some type of agenda that is for the kids, which you're saying like 8 to 10 11-year-olds might be watching this.
Yeah, because by then they're invested in the storyline, and it's not a bad story. Like as far as little kid horror is concerned, it's fun, it's kind of interesting, it's a lot, silly little things. It's just when you start in bringing in these words like that are going to beg the child to look them up now that their parents are checked out. Yeah. Like James, the gender non-conforming character, he refers to something. There's 2 boys who like the same girl. He's like, all right, it's getting too cis-het up in here. Yeah. And you're like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. You Google it and it just means that it's cisgender, heterosexual, or heteronormative. So basically he's saying that having a cisgender, heteronormative conversation is something bad. But by now the parent is gone. And if that's not their worldview, they're not there to correct it any longer. And then it gets even worse from there. Like that particular character, and I can't imagine that the LGBTQ community is delighted by the fact that the kid who keeps bringing up things that are inappropriate is that kid. Right. Like, why can't it be one of the other kids? But he's sitting at one point in episode 9, he's sitting on the hood of a car and he says something about, oh, this is emotional edging. And now I would normally just say a kid would blow past that word. It wouldn't mean anything to them. But the other character turns around and looks at him and says, is that a sex thing? And he's like, yeah, it is. And leading to me having to Google what edging is. Yep. And now, and my teenager was watching with me, my 15-year-old, and she's like, what does that mean? And I was like, you don't need to know. And eventually I'm talking to her about it because she's here and I'm reading and we have to have these conversations. Because again, I want to be the person that has that conversation first, not rando kid on Disney Plus. But it's buried in episode 9. Like by the time you're invested in the story, your kid doesn't want to turn it off anymore. Now they're saying things that are like, ugh.
Yeah. So I will just say it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in my opinion, I think Disney is doing this more and more often. I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater necessarily. Definitely not on this podcast. But
I love a lot of Disney stuff.
Yeah, so do I. But like they've always been accused of trying to say things that are not super obvious. And the way you're describing this and the way that I've seen it, it seems pretty obvious in Goosebumps. And again, I didn't know who it's for. And I definitely my mind didn't even go to 8 to 10-year-olds because it's me. So I was like, oh, it's made for high schoolers and they're not going to like it. But if there are 8 to 10-year-olds watching this, it worries me. I just thought it was boring. Like, I didn't think it was that scary. The first 5 episodes, it's either 4 or 5, are literally just the same day. And they're going through and you're learning who the characters are. And I just don't think there's a lot of depth there anyway. So I'm just kind of like, you know what's weird about me? I just love sports so much that in episode 1, I was just like, can I actually just watch this kid play football? Like, how good can we get like a bunch of football scenes?
Yeah. You just wanted it to be Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
Let's just quit.
How did you know that I was going to? So this is actually funny because I was actually going to compare it to Friday Night Lights.
Go for it.
And just say that I think Friday Night Lights is also not for kids, but maybe high school kids, but is maybe not. I don't know. We'll do that episode another day. It does a much better job, I think, of like high school culture than Goosebumps does. It's funny that we both thought of
Friday Night
that
Lights.
show because I love Friday Night Lights.
Yeah. So for me, this falls into the category sort of like the book drama, where like these are topics that are being brought up that would be appropriate for a high school kid, but the medium and the digestibility, the way that it is, it's more angled toward a much younger kid. And that worries me. So for me, I just say don't watch it. Don't start it. Don't turn it on, because you're going to run into those arguments from your 8-10-year-old who's going to say, but mom, it's not even scary. I'm not scared. It's fine. And my objection is not on the basis of fear. It's on the basis of over-sexualization in a way that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. So you're not giving it an age. You're saying
don't watch it.
Don't watch it.
I'm so sorry, Disney. I love you so much, but I don't think you got to fix this show.
I don't think it's possible to fix it. And this is something I think if people have listened long enough, they'll know that this means a lot coming from me. I read a lot of books a day, but they're all books to my kids.
Yeah.
Right. So I've recently read Chronicles of Narnia and a little Harry Potter. And so like those are the books I'm actually reading. The books were way better in Goosebumps.
Yeah, I read all of the books when I was a kid.
The books were incredible. Yeah. And so just stick to the books. I'm curious to see if R.L. Stein's going to say, I found a Twitter of him and I don't know.
He's very elderly now. I would be surprised. I don't think he's even involved in the production of the show.
I don't think so either. And I tried to look all this stuff up and
I did too. I couldn't find anything.
But I'm pretty sure I did find his Twitter.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, I don't think that he's a fan. But we'll do some more research and we'll put it in the show notes if we find it.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I say don't watch it. If you don't care about any of the stuff we just said, probably fine like 16 and up, 15, 16 and up. But I just avoid it. Watch Boy Meets World instead. I
know there's a camp of parents who, and like I am very much of the opinion that representation matters and showing those things. Like I have a child with a limb difference. Whenever there's a limb different person in a show, I love to see it. I love to see that kind of thing. But I don't think that it does a good job representing the cultures and the differences. Oh my gosh, if this gets cut, it gets cut. But I was also extremely concerned about the fact that the overarching bad guy, the guy that brings the slappy into the equation, is literally the only Jewish character there, and they named him Ephraim. So there's no way you're missing that he's Jewish. Yeah. And he becomes greedy and money hungry. He abandons his family because he wants to be famous with this doll. And just a show that is so concerned about diversity and inclusion, making the only Jewish character a greedy monster who brings a demon into the world feels bad.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was I was like, if this guy turns out to be a bad guy, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah, that is very clear.
Yeah. Don't watch it. I'm sorry. I want to tell you to watch it. Please go watch Five Nights at Freddy's instead.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I'm saying.
Take. I actually am with you. And I haven't even brought this up yet, but like the reason I say don't watch it, I just think any show that puts a huge mistrust of kids on their parents is like super weird to me.
Yes.
Like I do understand there are bad parents out there.
Yes.
None of them listen to this podcast because only good parents listen
to this.
Only good
parents listen to this.
But like seriously, I get that exists, but we don't need to do any help of helping teenagers hate their parents or not trust their parents. Like that's crazy. So don't watch it.
Yeah. The parents are clearly idiots too. It's like, you didn't commit a crime, you morons.
Yeah.
Idiots. It's fine. Whatever.
It's dumb. Don't watch it. Not for kids.
I would say that in a nicer way. Your kids could watch something better.
Like Boy Meets World.
If it is a thing that you feel like you would be okay with your kids seeing all of the things, just make sure you're there the whole time. Don't check out after episode 4 because you're like, it seems like it's just going over normal teenage stuff.
Yeah.
It's not.
Agree. You should let us know what you want to watch us review or talk about next.
Yeah, they can go to
Instagram comment section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where else?
Isthisforkids.com.
Which has everything on there, including our Patreon. which is exciting. There's a lot of really cool things about that. So check it out. isthisforkids.com. We want to hear from you, and we appreciate your support.
Yes. Thank you for hanging out with us. There's so much media out there for us to navigate as parents.
I'm Jonathan Blevins.
I'm Katie, and let us help you figure out, is this for kids?
Is it for kids? Goosebumps is not.
John, I need you to see this picture that I took of my kids. Hang on, I'm scrolling back here. That's Christmas.
Today, Junior.
It's last Thursday. That's 45 minutes ago.
Hello.
Okay, hang on. Here it is. It just took me a minute. Here.
Oh, that is a really nice picture. Instead of like scrolling to show people your favorite pictures, you could just use Soul Tiles.
What's a Soul Tile?
It allows you to take any picture from your phone and upload it onto a piece of glass that you can then display in your house for anyone to see.
Glass. John, don't you think that's going to break?
No, it's tempered glass, which is vibrant, beautiful, and durable.
Okay, I am so bad at hanging things. Like I can't get it straight.
Let me stop you right there. You know that I am too. My wife does all of that stuff around the house. However, Soul Tiles makes it super easy by giving you an entire direction kit and a level that helps make it super easy that even you could do it.
All right. You've almost got me sold on it, but my house is so small. There's probably not sizes that make sense for us.
Scott and Elizabeth thought of everything. You can get 8x8, 8x16, 8x24, whatever size you need. Go to soultiles.com/ITFK. That's how they'll know that we sent you.